sound? Sounds fine with me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Allston. Hey, and welcome to the Tim Commandments of Leadership. This is where we do two major things every time. Number one, we seek to educate, empower, and equip emerging leaders with God-thought leadership. And the second thing we attempt to do every episode is to to present current events and newsmakers in the light of biblical best practices. And so what is happening is all over the country this week, people are gearing up. We're gearing up. This upcoming Saturday, the 14th of June, has been set aside as No King's Day and is featuring nationwide protest. But on this day, Thursday, I want to share with you that I'm wrestling with not that stranger in the White House, but with the mirror in front of me. So I'm glad you've joined me. And my episode today will be entitled Wrestling Toward Recovering, Jacob, Trump, and the Mirror Called Me. Let's get into it. Like Jacob in Genesis 32, I'm facing parts of myself that I've run away from for years. Pride, controlled insecurity. And like Donald Trump, I've been tempted to wrestle others for their affirmations when I should have wrestled with God for his transformation. But here's the truth. God doesn't bless the mask. He blesses the limp. I'll explain. So today I chose to stop performing and to start transforming, because egoholism, whether it's inflated or deflated, can only be healed when we're honest, when we're humble, and when we're held by God. The text that I chose today is Genesis 32:24. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled with a man. He wrestled the man with him until the breaking of day. Lord, break me if you must, but bless me as I limp forward. This is your recovering egoholic, Tim Allston, talking. And again, my title for this episode today is Wrestling Toward Recovering, Jacob, Trump, and the mirror called Tim Allston, called me. This is not an easy one for me to talk about, but I will. Again, you've heard the news all over the country. They have been estimated, so there's going to estimate some 14 to 1,800 protests around the country, national protests declaring Saturday No King's Day. And so I know that in Los Angeles, they are expecting 250,000 people to be there protesting that the alleged efforts to deport folk who are legal and legit. But my focus is on Genesis 32:24. Jacob was left alone, and the man wrestled with him until daybreak. I want to reflect upon that night that Jacob wrestled with God and the day we must wrestle with God. In Genesis 32, Jacob wasn't wrestling for sport or for show. He was clinging to God in desperation as God, who was disguised in human form, pressed Jacob's egoholism down, pressing that old life out of him. By morning, Jacob limped, but he also limped now forward. His name, his nature, and his destiny were forever changed. He changed from Jacob the deceiver to Israel the overcomer. So I ask you, and I ask myself, have you wrestled with God lately? Are you willing to let him chip away all of those egoholisms, both those inflated and deflated egoholisms? You see, inflated egoholisms sound like arrogance, self-righteousness, boastfulness, the sense of I know it all. Deflated egoholism whispers insecurity, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and self-loathing. But either way, we're worshiping self, and that is idol worship. Like Jacob, we must face our Esau, meaning that whatever and whomever we have deceived, denied, or damaged, we must take it to the top, to the TOP. For example, we must target the problem. Stop blaming Esau and Laban and mama and daddy or the system. And then we must own the problem. No excuses, no blame gaming. And after we target the problem and own the problem, then we must proceed with action. Take the next step of faith. In my 10 commandments of egoholism recovering, let me show you what I mean. Number one, step one in recovering is very simple. Change your lanes. Glance back quickly before going forward. Now, don't stare back, just glance back. Why? Because living in the past is like living with the dead. Step two, dig below the surface to uncover both your skeletons and your hidden treasures. I like very much the story, you've heard me tell it before, and you'll hear me tell it again, of Michelangelo, the Italian sculptor, who was asked one day, how did you make that magnificent statue of David out of that huge block of marble? Michelangelo said, David was always in that block of marble. My job was simply to chip away that excess rock. He was already there. So what are your excess rocks? I can tell you what my excess rocks are. Mine spells the word spades, S-P-A-I-D-E-S. S for selfishness, P for procrastination, A for arrogance, I for impression mismanagement. That impression mismanagement hit me some 50 years ago in 1975 when I walked in a new professor's office in the sociology department back at my school, Hampton Institute. And I saw a sign on the wall that I never forgot, obviously. It said, prosperity, spending money you don't have, to buy things you don't need, to impress people you don't like. Impression mismanagement. Spades, selfishness. P, procrastination. A, arrogance. I, impression mismanagement. D, disorganization. E, poor eye contact. And S, again, selfishness. You see, God is still chipping away at me. And I thank God for that. Step 3 of recovering is become an active listener. Did you know that the same letters that make up the word listen, L-I-S-T-E-N, are the exact same letters that make up the word silent, S-I-L-E-N-T? In our story today, Jacob wrestled silently, but then he responded when God spoke. Step 4 says grow up to be a child. Not childish, but childlike, honest, open, teachable. Step 5, don't just make better lemonade from your bitter lemons. Instead, bake a better and best lemon meringue pie. For example, leadership expert Dr. John C. Maxwell lets us know that there's a difference between inheritance and legacy. Inheritance and legacy. Inheritance is what you leave for your family after you're gone, but legacy is what you put in your family, put in your village, and put in your friends, and put in your colleagues while you're still here. Jacob is a prime example. His son Joseph would eventually save nations from starvation. That's legacy. It's not inheritance. That's lemon meringue pie. Step 6 of recovering says your healing is in your revealing. Your healing's in your revealing. Jacob's years of grief turned to glory when Joseph was found alive and Joseph was leading. And step number 7 says, now that you know, go, elevate, and grow. The limp was Jacob's reminder. My thorn is mine. What's yours? I love the author of the best-selling book, The Purpose-Driven Life, when he summed up Jacob's experience, when he offered, God touched Jacob's strength. The thigh muscle is the strongest one in the body, and turned it into a weakness. From that day forward, Jacob walked with a limp so he would never run away again. It forced him to lean on God whether he liked it or not. If you want God to bless you and use you greatly, you must be willing to walk with a limp for the rest of your life. Why? Because God uses weak people. And that came from The Purpose-Driven Life, pages 277 and 278. And finally, as the protests continue to escalate across the country today, tomorrow, And for this upcoming Saturday, the No King's Day, we must remember this. Trump is not the enemy. Don't give him that much credit, y'all. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. However, before I point the finger at Trump, I must ask what the disciples asked Jesus at the Last Supper in the upper room. Lord, is it I? Yes, Tim Allston is capricious, like Trump. Yes, Tim Allston is elitist, like Trump. Yes, Tim Allston sometimes worships himself, like Trump. And yes, God is still wrestling with Tim Allston, pressing out the ego so he can press in the Holy Spirit. The wrestling is in the recovering. Like Jacob, we don't leave that wrestling match the same as we started it as those egoholics. And as we approach June 14th, No King's Day protest, may we wrestle not just against the man in the White House office, but may we also wrestle against the man or woman in the mirror. So what are you wrestling with right now? Are you willing to let God rename and remake you like he did Joseph? Like he did Jacob? Correction. Follow my hashtags at hashtag egoholism recovering, hashtag silver metal leaders, hashtag leadership transformation, hashtag from ego to Israel, hashtag no king's day, hashtag Tim's take, hashtag wrestle with God, hashtag self-leadership, hashtag Christian leadership, hashtag egoholism recovering, hashtag leadership healing, hashtag Jacob's limp, hashtag lemons to legacy, hashtag from spade to saints. Thanks for listening and watching and praying with me. If you would, please like, subscribe, and also share this podcast with your friends. And if this message has blessed you, share it and wrestle your way to recovering. This has been Tim Allston, and I will see you on tomorrow. Have a blessed day.